Welcome to Soul Focus Radio, where our power, our future is in growing, and being soul focused is how we grow. My name is Berwick, Mahdi, and so I want to introduce myself to you now. I'm with my co-host, Dustin Washington, who's going to come in and introduce himself. What you got, Dustin?
Man, first, it's good to be back with you, man. I'm loving
Same here.
These conversations we're having, brother. Powerful stuff. You want to continue on the rhythm that we've been on around manifestations of internalized oppression. The topic dynamic I'd like to talk about is rage and anger, and both how we've internalized rage and anger and how we externalize rage and anger, and really how that impacts our relationships, because we are fundamentally a relational people. And relationships, we talk about coming together collectively. That coming together is based on healthy relationships, and anger and rage is something I see that plays out through almost all the relationships I've seen in organizing. So I'd like to talk about that as a manifestation and how that impacts our emotional growth and how that retards our emotional expression, whether that's with our partners, our lovers, our family members, our children, our colleagues, our comrades, how those dynamics fit together.
Well, I would say first that I think the first thing we need to understand about rage and anger is the source of them, because we're not talking about the source. We're talking about things around the source, right? So when you think about anger, few people realize that the source of anger is fear, all right? Few people realize it. Matter of fact, anger is used as a distraction or a decoy to try to scare people away from what we are afraid of. And oftentimes we use it so cleverly ourselves that we forget that it's fear that's driving our anger. And so we never address what we are afraid of. We just keep being angry. And so we keep being angry, and it becomes rage. It reaches a certain level in us that it becomes rage, meaning at any moment now you can blow. You can blow like a stick of dynamite. You could just blow up. But what it got there, how it got there, was that there were years and years of unaddressed fear. And see, living in a society where we are constantly being rejected, there is a fear of not being accepted. That is a fear that we have, because we are still deliberating over whether or not we want to be accepted by this world. We're still deliberating whether or not we really want to be in this world. And the reality is, a world that has rejected you, we need to come out of deliberation. We shouldn't be begging this world to accept us at all, because we got everything this world wants. We got everything this world wants and have given everything that's in this world to this world. And we haven't really given it. It has been stolen from us because we have inadvertently created things that the world has been able to take from us without having to give us credit, because we didn't even know we were creating it. But what is really going on is fear. So we have to be honest about what we're afraid of. And what we're afraid of is ourselves. This world has made us afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of our children. We're afraid of our brothers. We're afraid of our sisters. We are afraid of ourselves. We are so suspicious of ourselves. Now, you got to understand how powerful that is when you think about we're living in a world that has us afraid of ourselves. Let me tell you how powerful that is. There is no one in the world you are going to spend more time with than yourself. You spend 24 hours a day with yourself. When you get up to go to the toilet, you are right there. When you get up in the middle of the night to cheat on your diet, you're right there. When you lie to somebody else, you are right there. When you front to somebody else, you are right there. You are right there with yourself all the time. There's never a time when you're going to get away from you. Now imagine what it would mean to be afraid of you. Wow. So the very person that you are afraid of the most, you are with all the time and have no choice but to be with. Now you can see how the anger would be always there. Because you're angry because you're afraid of yourself, and here's why you're afraid of yourself. Because you never have learned how to use your power. You know you have power, but you don't know how to use it. And every time you see some come out, it comes out as force, not as power. It comes out with you being angry and upset because you haven't learned how to use yourself, and it frustrates you. And the more we don't know how to use ourselves, the more frustrated we become, the more we feel like people are using us, because we're all here to be used. But the question is, who is going to use you more, you or the world?
Wow.
And when you are afraid of yourself, you don't use yourself very much. Everybody else does, but you don't. Because you're not taking the time, when you're afraid of yourself, you're not taking the time to get to know who you are. You're not taking the time to get to know your resources, to get to know your talents, your abilities, and your skills, and to learn how to put those talents, skills, and abilities to work so you can feel your power. Because power is all about you being able to give yourself what you want. And if you can't give yourself what you want and you see yourself repeatedly being unable to give yourself what you want, you're going to see yourself as powerless. And guess what that's going to do? That's going to make you afraid. You're going to be afraid. I'm afraid. Damn, I'm living in a world I can't give myself what I want. I'm living in a world I can't feed my kids. I'm living in a world where they're trying to kill us. All of this then feeds more fear. But the only antidote to it is to get to know the resources within yourself, to get to know yourself, to stop being afraid of you. Stop talking to yourself crazy. Love on yourself. Speak to yourself in a way that affirms who you are and get to know your talents. Get to know your ability to start learning how to use them to benefit you. Stop trying to impress people. Fuck them. Stop trying to impress them. Fuck them all. And start focusing on how you're going to use your skills and your abilities to help improve your life and your life for the life of your kids and the life of your family, the life of our community. We got to stop trying to get people to accept us because they're doing us a favor. If they're rejecting you, they're telling you, they're redirecting you when you're in your right state of mind.
Right, right. And so, Mahdi, when I think about the reactionary nature that many of us can be in, and so, I'm starting to learn to not differentiate maybe the violence we might see on the street, or gunplay versus there's no difference between that and the lashing out we might see in a high-power meeting. And I'm talking about just with us, where we're supposed to be. There's no difference. And so you're saying the roots of all those dynamics, from the violence on the street, the violence in the home, the verbal violence that we unleash upon each other, at the root of all that is fear.
Fear. They've been feeding us fear since the day we were born. And the fear they've been feeding us the fear of being afraid of ourselves. The preacher told us to be afraid of ourselves when he told us that we were sinners. He said we were sinners, and I remember when I was in church, when I first heard that, I was like 8 years old with my great-grandmother, and I heard the preacher say that we all sin and come short of the glory of God. And I asked myself, damn, at 8 years old, what did I do? That was the innocent 8-year-old in me asked the question, what did I do to become a sinner? What did I do wrong? But then I started being suspicious of myself because if I'm a sinner, I've fallen short of the glory of God, then there got to be something wrong with me. I got to watch out for myself. I can't trust me. And that distrust in self generates fear because you got to be with yourself 24 hours a day. And if you can't trust you, then fuck it. Who the hell are you going to trust if you can't trust your damn self?
Right.
You just fronting like you trust people. You don't trust nobody else if you can't trust your fucking self. If you can't trust yourself, don't tell me you trust your mama. Don't tell me you trust your daddy. Don't tell me you trust your friends. That's bullshit. Because when God tells you stuff, God tells it to you directly for you to act on it. And if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to act on it. You're going to go look for confirmation. That's all that means is that you're looking for someone else to give approval to what God already told you to do.
Right.
Which is bullshit.
Right. So, Mahdi, with the fear, with the bullshit, with the rejection, how does that play out? Because, just talking, one of the things I'm thinking a lot about is that this world has given us messages that we are not to be loving and gentle with each other.
Right. Oh, right.
And let alone with women. But I'm thinking about just brothers with each other, how we relate to each other. We walk by each other, we're giving each other that eye, that whole dynamic. But that's our nature, though. And that's such a beautiful experience when you can feel that loving and gentleness with us. How do we harvest that more? And I want to use those words of loving and gentleness with each other because, I think about Brother Malcolm, where he spoke to the fact that we need to become more loving and gentle with each other and really understanding the poison that's been put in all of us. And through that lovingness and that gentleness, we will be able to just carry each other forward through this process. Right. And I just, and I think about just our emotional nature of how we relate to each other. How do we start to get down on a day-to-day basis, both with self and, of course, with those around us in a more loving and gentle way?
I say this. that it all starts with how we love ourselves. See, I won't even know how to be gentle and loving to another brother in a way that's healthy if I'm not practicing it with me. If I'm not practicing compassion with myself, patience with myself. Because, see, I had to learn to be patient with me. I had to learn to not jump down my throat when I messed up. Because there were times in my life when I messed up, and I had to learn how to talk to myself to inspire myself in spite of me messing up. Because we're going to mess up in life. We're going to make mistakes. But that don't mean that we should abandon ourselves. And until we learn how to be loyal to our soul, which is another word saying loyal to self, then we won't know how to be loyal to each other. Because you know what? As long as we are not loyal to ourselves, we exist in insecurity, which is a manifestation of internalized oppression. We exist in insecurity. And as long as we're insecure, we can't be around other brothers that's secure because we're going to act insecure. We're gonna feel a certain kind of way if they get in the limelight and we ain't. We're going to start wanting to sabotage it. We're going to start wanting to work against them. We're going to start fronting and pretending, start competing. If we ain't dealt with that stuff and you put us together and we haven't really learned how to love ourselves and be loyal to who we are, all we're going to do is work against one another. And that's what I keep saying. The outside world is a manifestation of the condition of the inside world. And the universe says you are not going to beat universal law. Outside is a reflection of the inside. That's universal law. And we keep trying to override universal law by going to try to change the systems and the things on the outside as if the things on the outside have created themselves. They didn't create themselves. They came from the conditions inside of people, from the conditions inside of white people, from the conditions inside of black people, the conditions inside of brown people, and so forth and so on. They came from inside of us.
Damn, bro. Damn. The external world is a reflection of the internal world. And you said loyalty to self is loyalty to soul. Powerful, that's right. Powerful words, Mahdi. Powerful words. Bro, I thank you for your wisdom today. To the listeners, we thank you for joining us and staying with us. And as always, stay soul focused. We love you.
Stay soul focused. Love you. Love you, people.
Peace.
Peace.